My husband John had a close friend, Harper Beth. So close that they shared the same bed, even ate from the same ice cream cone. I told him to keep some distance. But he just sighed, exasperated. Nancy, if something were going to happen, it would have happened already. Can we just have a little trust here? Fine. So I turned around and got myself a male best friend. The night John stayed out again with Beth, I barely reacted. When he came home around noon, he brought tom yum soup, my favorite Thai dish. For once, he took the initiative to explain. We haven't hung out in a while. And we had too much to drink last night. We just got a hotel to crash. Don't worry, nothing happened. I slept on the floor. He made sure to emphasize that last part. After all, the last time this happened, we had a huge fight. I accused him of having no sense of boundaries despite being married, and I wouldn't let it go until I confronted Beth directly. Beth was his old neighbor, his childhood friend. Despite being a woman, she was one of the guys. Loud, carefree, always treating everyone like an old buddy. I had seen her more than once casually plopping down on their laps, laughing and joking, sharing drinks like it was nothing. At first, John had the patience to explain. But as time went on, he got sick of it. Eventually he snapped. If anything was going to happen between us, it would have happened long before you married me. Then he slammed the door and left. The funny thing was, his friends actually told me, that's just how Beth is. We all see her as a little sister, and John thinks of her as family. You're overthinking it. Little sister? What kind of sister had no concept of boundaries? I was miserable. I told John that if he didn't learn how to keep his distance, we might as well get a divorce. For a while he did keep his distance. But that only led to Beth making a show of it whenever I was around. Nancy, see? I'm not sitting next to John. John, you should take Nancy home early tonight. Don't drink with us too long. We don't want Nancy getting mad. John isn't the same John anymore. He's on a leash now. I wouldn't dare get too close. She always made sure I was within earshot. Naturally, it created an awkward atmosphere. And just like that, I became the petty, jealous, unreasonable wife in everyone's eyes. That was when things between John and me started to shift. When we started becoming distant. Now, looking at the takeout bag in his hand at what used to be my favorite meal, I felt nothing. John must have noticed my coldness because he set the bag down and walked over, wrapping his arms around me. His voice was soft, coaxing. Baby, didn't you want to see that movie? I'm not going to the office today. Let's go watch it together. That movie, I had been looking forward to it for months. When it came out, I asked John to go with me. He said he was too busy. A few days later, I saw a post on Beth's social media. The picture didn't show their faces, but the hand in the frame, the long fingers, the wedding ring on the left hand, was unmistakably John's. They were holding movie tickets. Now, catching the faint scent of perfume on his shirt, I pulled away expressionlessly. No need. I went back to packing my suitcase. Nancy. His voice sharpened with irritation as he grabbed my wrist. Are you pulling this running away act again? I already told you, Beth and I aren't what you think. I know. I calmly pulled my hand free. You're just friends. Something in my tone must have thrown him off because his expression stiffened. He hesitated, then frowned. Then what the hell are you making a scene for? I'm going on a business trip. His face darkened. He stared at me for a long time as if trying to figure out whether I was lying. But there was nothing to find. I was calm, as I no longer cared. Who he watched movies with, who he spent the night out with, who he took on dates. None of it mattered anymore. It was clear I wasn't angry. But the calmer I was, the more frustrated John became. He seemed convinced I was giving him the silent treatment, stubbornly trying to make amends. He grabbed my hand, insisting we go to the movies. I watched as he hastily pulled on his jacket, growing more and more impatient. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer and gently reminded him, there's no need. The movie I wanted to see isn't in theaters anymore. His fingers froze on his phone screen. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of emotions cross his face, too many to decipher. The air between us turned thick, heavy with silence. On the table, the soup grew colder by the second. I bent down, placed the last item into my suitcase and zipped it shut. After that day, John suddenly became unusually affectionate. While I was away on my trip, he texted me like clockwork, morning and night, asking about my schedule, wanting to know exactly when I'd be back. I told him, On the day of my return, as I walked out of the airport, I spotted his car. A sleek black Bugatti parked by the curb. The moment he saw me, he quickly got out, striding over as if it was the most natural thing in the world to take my suitcase from me. But when we reached the car, I saw her. Beth. Sitting in the passenger seat, legs crossed, arm casually resting on the open window. When she saw me, she flashed a bright, syrupy sweet smile. "Nancy, I'm just hitching a ride. I'll be out of your way soon, promise. Hope you don't mind." Her tone was playful, her expression anything but apologetic. John finished loading my suitcase and turned back, his voice a little stiff. She was nearby, so I told her I'd give her a lift. "You don't mind, right?" Before I could respond, Beth leaned further out the window, grinning. Good thing John was around, or I'd be stuck in the middle of nowhere. "You have no idea how hard it is to get a cab from my place." She laughed, playfully punching John in the chest. "And of course, if John ever dares to leave me stranded, I'll just tattle to his parents." She kept talking, giggling as she teased him. Midway through another exaggerated gesture, she suddenly seemed to remember something, hesitating, withdrawing her arm, and throwing me a wink. "Nancy, you know me and John were just used to messing around. Nothing more, I swear." Ever since our last big fight, Beth had toned down her blatant physical closeness with John. Now she made a show of acting like she was holding back, pretending to be cautious as if I had forced her into it. As if my jealousy and pettiness were the only reasons she had to keep her distance. But if Beth truly cared about boundaries, then why had she started staying out all night with him again? Why were they still going on little one-on-one outings? Why did I catch the subtle challenge in her eyes whenever she looked at me? In the past, this kind of mind game would have set me off. But now, I couldn't be bothered. Even when John hesitated and offered, "Beth, maybe you should get out," I simply waved him off, opening the backseat door myself. "Doesn't matter. I have a friend who needs a ride too. He'll sit in the back with me." A friend. John barely had time to register what I said before a voice called out my name. Turning around, I saw his expression shift in an instant. A tall, broad-shouldered man, dressed in an outrageously flashy outfit, was making his way toward me, dragging a suitcase behind him. The moment he caught up, he shot me a pouty look. "Nancy, that was so mean of you. I was just grabbing my luggage and poof, you disappeared." Then, with exaggerated dramatics, he latched onto my arm, flashing a charming, playful smile. "I'm all alone in this big city, you have to take care of me." The scene froze both John and Beth in place. John was the first to react. He yanked me back, his grip tight. "This is the friend you were talking about." His voice was laced with irritation as his gaze locked onto the man in front of him, brow furrowing instantly. "Yep. That's me," Wilson Porter said cheerfully, extending a hand toward John. He shook it with the ease of someone who had known him for years, then casually tossed his suitcase into the trunk before sliding into the back seat. "Nancy, come on. Hop in." He grinned, waving me over. I moved toward the car, only for John to block my way. "Nancy." He leaned in, his voice lower, his jaw tight. I could almost hear his teeth grinding. Who the hell is he? I met his gaze. Unwavering. Just a friend. From the corner of my eye, I caught Beth still comfortably seated in the front, not moving an inch. For once, John had no retort. Wilson chatted with me the entire ride, which made the front seats feel unusually quiet. Beth wasn't usually the silent type. Anytime we traveled together, she'd be glued to John's side, chattering non-stop, reminiscing about their childhood embarrassments, gossiping about mutual friends. Their conversations always flowed so naturally, so effortlessly, and always about things I had no way of joining in on. But today, no matter how many times Beth tried to start a conversation, John's responses were short, detached. A drive that should have taken 30 minutes wrapped up in 15. After dropping them off, John unexpectedly opened the front passenger door for me. "Sit up here," he said. I glanced at him for a moment, then stayed right where I was. "I'm fine in the back." My voice was calm. "I'm tired. Let's just go home." I closed my eyes, resting my head against the seat. John said nothing, but when he shut the door, the sound was louder than usual. He stormed into the house with a dark expression. I had barely taken off my coat when I saw him head straight for the living room, lighting a cigarette. The glow of the flame flickered across his face, casting shifting shadows. Who is that guy to you indeed? John took a long drag, then crushed the cigarette out in the ashtray, looking up at me. I met his stare, voice neutral. A friend. His expression darkened further. A guy that good-looking, just your friend? You went on that trip with him, didn't you? His anger boiled over as he kicked my suitcase. You spent days together, I snapped. Yanking open the suitcase, I met his glare head-on. My work partner was either going to be a man or a woman. Wilson is easy to get along with and damn good at his job. What's the problem with us being friends? There is a problem. He's a guy. Guys can't be just friends. I let out a short laugh. Oh, so you can have a female best friend, but I can't have a male one. That shut him up. I had never seen such a spectacular range of emotions on John's face before. Shock, frustration, disbelief. Finally, he gritted his teeth and muttered, "Beth is different. We grew up together. If anything was going to happen between us, it would've." I cut him off, meeting his gaze without hesitation. "Wilson and I are different too. How about giving each other a little trust?" John had no comeback. For days he sulked in silence and we fell into a cold war. Then over the weekend his parents invited us over for dinner. At the table they quickly picked up on the tension between us. His mother, ever perceptive, gently prodded, "John, Nancy left everything behind to be with you. You'd better be good to her." John and I had met in college. I was an only child and the original plan had always been to move back home after graduation. But for him I stayed. Hearing his mother's words, John's expression softened. As we were leaving he reached for my hand. "Nancy, Before he could finish, an arm suddenly slung around his neck. "John, it's been a whole week since we last hung out. Let's get together." Beth. Once again she had no qualms about draping herself over him in public. But this time, John didn't smile at her like he usually did. Instead he quickly shrugged her off, casting an uneasy glance my way. Beth noticed. She turned to me with a saccharine smile, then exaggeratedly stepped back, right into the crowd of their mutual friends who had followed behind. "Ah, Nancy's here too," she remarked, feigning surprise. Behind her the others jumped in. "John, you didn't even tell us you were visiting your parents. If Beth hadn't spotted you, you would have just slipped away." "Exactly. And since we're all here, let's go hit the bar." A chorus of voices chimed in, full of excitement. I saw it, the flicker of temptation in John's expression. But unlike before, he hesitated. Instead of instantly agreeing, he turned to me, silently asking for my opinion. His friends noticed too. Even though John and I had been married for a while, they had always kept their distance from me. I wasn't part of their circle. And of course there was Beth. So whenever I was around, the atmosphere felt tense, forced. John tested the waters. "How about you come with us?" Almost instantly, I felt the mood shift. Beth's reaction was the most telling. Her lips pouted in visible displeasure, her eyes darting to their friends, silently signaling them. The entire group was waiting for my answer. They didn't want me to go. But they did want me to let John go. So I did. Gently, I slipped my hand from his grasp, my voice soft and steady. "It's okay, you guys go ahead. I'll just take a cab home then." Silence. The tension in the air thickened. For a moment, John seemed torn, relieved yet guilty all at once. "I'll be home early," he promised. As if that would somehow make up for it. I simply smiled. Then without another word I turned and walked out of the yard. As I stepped away, someone muttered behind me, "Damn, did Nancy finally change? Not jealous of Beth anymore? She's actually letting John go out with us." 1 a.m. John hadn't come home. I didn't ask, as I had plans of my own. Wilson and I, along with a few friends, hit up the busiest bar in town. The music pounded against my eardrums, a relentless beat that made it easy to forget everything else. Our group settled into a spacious booth and before long, we were lost in the energy of the night. A few rounds in, someone beside me suddenly got excited, pointing across the room. "Holy shit! Look at that, it's getting wild over there." At those words, everyone immediately turned their heads, curiosity piqued. I turned too, and saw them. John's group. 7 guys, 1 girl. The table was covered in empty bottles, a chaotic mess of drinks and half-eaten appetizers. John sat at the head of the group, his face obscured by distance, his head bowed as he stared at his phone. That was until Beth snatched it from his hands. Then, in one smooth motion, she climbed onto his lap, straddling him with effortless ease, one arm draped around his neck, the other lifting a bottle of liquor in the air. No one batted an eye. In fact, they cheered, laughed. Them on. Looks like they're playing truth or dare, drinking mouth to mouth. That chick is insane. Just now she got dared to take off her bra and she actually did it. Then she hung it around some dude's neck. Absolutely nuts. Everyone around me was laughing. I wasn't. As I saw it. John, putting his phone down, no longer distracted. John, amidst the raucous cheers. Not pushing Beth away. John, letting Beth, lips full of liquor, lean down to press her mouth against his. Disgust churned in my stomach. It was repulsive. Utterly revolting. Beth never got the chance to finish that drunken little game. As I walked up to them and slapped them both hard, the entire bar went silent. John's so-called brotherhood quickly jumped in, laughing awkwardly, trying to smooth things over. Come on, it was just a joke. Beth, eyes welling up like some wounded damsel, pouted. It was just a game. I didn't spare her a glance. Instead, I plucked that bra she'd so proudly draped over another man and flung it straight into her face. Then without looking back I turned and walked away. You like playing games? My voice carried through the stunned silence. Then wait until John and I are divorced. You'll have all the time in the world. I meant it. As I was done. But John wasn't. He chased me all the way home. Baby, come on. It was just a game. Beth messes around with all of us. It's just how she is. We don't even think of her as a woman. He faltered when I stopped packing. My expression unreadable. Sensing he was losing ground, he quickly backtracked. Okay. Look, you got mad, I get it. But I swear I'll stop. I'll never fool around with them again. Then, as if realizing his desperation, his tone turned sharp, defensive. Nancy, you're not exactly innocent either. You went to a bar with a bunch of guys. You didn't see me throwing a fit over that. The more he tried to pacify me, the more impatient he got. Until finally he snapped, grabbing his hair in frustration. His voice rising in a yell. I didn't flinch. I had already packed most of my things. Not everything, I'd have to come back for the rest later. But every passing second in this house made my skin crawl. Move, I said flatly. John stood in front of me, blocking my way, his arms tense, his breath reeking of alcohol. I met his gaze, my voice eerily calm. Real heartbreak doesn't come with screaming matches. Looks exactly like this. When everything loses its meaning. John hesitated. For the first time he looked afraid. His broad frame stiffened. His face, already flushed with alcohol, darkened with frustration. You're really making this a big deal, huh? His voice dropped into a growl. I let out a quiet laugh. John, would you be okay with me sitting on Wilson's lap like that? His whole body went rigid. I stepped closer, pressing in. You weren't okay with us sitting next to each other in the back seat. You sulked for days. So tell me, what gives you the right to expect me to turn a blind eye to you and Beth? That's different. John blurted out. How? I'm a man. You're a woman. No matter what I do, no one can take advantage of me. The moment those words left his mouth, something inside me snapped. I had thought maybe he was just clueless. That he genuinely didn't understand boundaries. But no. He knew. They all knew. I stared at him, my hands trembling. Disbelief. Disgust. So you knew all along. You knew Beth was out of line. You knew your so-called friendship crossed boundaries. You just didn't care because as long as she was a woman, it felt good to let her cling to you. To let her stroke your ego while you pretended it was nothing. John's face twisted. For the first time, he couldn't argue back. Like I had ripped away the last flimsy excuse he'd been clinging to. His jaw clenched. His eyes darted away. Guilty. I smiled. Wilson. I said lightly. I brought him along on purpose. To piss you off. John's head snapped back to me, something like hope flickering in his eyes. Then I crushed it. At first I thought you just didn't understand boundaries. That if you saw it from my perspective you'd finally get it. I exhaled slowly. But I was wrong. You do understand. You just enjoyed it. I shoved him. John stumbled back, crashing onto the floor. Eyes wide in shock. I didn't even blink. Didn't look at him again as I reached for my suitcase. And then with a voice devoid of warmth, I ended it. John, let's get a divorce. Because the longer I stay with you, the more disgusted I'll be. I had made up my mind. But John refused to accept it. He even went as far as bringing my parents into it, hoping they'd convince me to stay. John had always left a good impression on them. Smart, handsome, ambitious. He started his own company fresh out of college, and when we got married he had shown my parents nothing but sincerity. So, of course, they sided with him. At first. But that changed fast. Because John became famous. The bar incident. Someone had recorded it. The video went viral overnight. Suddenly, the entire internet knew the story of the wife who slapped the mistress feeding liquor to her husband while straddling his lap. The backlash was relentless. The comments were brutal. This woman is shameless. She knows he's married and still clings to him. No, it's not just that she clings to married men, she clings to everyone. Did you see her bra? She literally threw it on another guy's neck. This man is disgusting. No respect for his wife. At first Beth fought back. She argued with commenters, calling them toxic, jealous, accusing them of having dirty minds. She insisted it was all harmless friendship, just childhood buddies messing around. No one bought it. Instead, the internet started digging. And what they found only made it worse. Photos, captions, social media posts. Beth had documented everything. Her wearing their clothes, sleeping in their beds, sharing drinks, sharing ice cream, holding hands, 10 fingers intertwined. And in every post, her words practically dripped with pride. Beth was trending. John was trending too. And their entire friend circle became a laughingstock. Every guy with a girlfriend got dumped. Every single guy. Suddenly, no woman wanted to go near them. Someone even gave them a nickname, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. One viral comment read, "This is the worst PR disaster for Snow White in history." I watched it all unfold. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. Beth had been a tumor in my marriage, growing unchecked while John refused to acknowledge it. Now, the tumor had turned on him. And I had already walked away. Of course, the scandal didn't last. John and his friends weren't just rich, they were connected. Within few days the negative press vanished. Beth's social media wiped clean. Then not long after, John's parents showed up at my door. They were desperate. They begged me to see him. "He's in the hospital," his mother said, her voice trembling. "Drinking too much. The whole time he's been calling your name. Nancy, I know he messed up, but please, for the sake of your marriage, just go see him." I could have refused. But I didn't. When I arrived, John looked awful. Hollow-eyed. A shell of himself. But the moment he saw me, something flickered in his lifeless expression. Hope. He tried to sit up. I gently stopped him. "When are you getting discharged?" I asked. His eyes brightened. "Nancy, does this mean you'll forgive me? I swear I'll never make the same mistakes again. Just give me one more chance, I'll cut Beth off completely, I swear." I shattered his delusion with one sentence. "The moment you're discharged, we finalize the divorce." The words hit him like a physical blow. Pain twisted his features, beads of sweat rolling down his temples. His voice trembled. "Nancy, I didn't cheat on you. You know that. It was just messing around, that's all." He was crying now. John. The golden boy. The one women had always chased. Prideful, confident, untouchable, reduced to this. Begging. I should have felt something. But I didn't. I just shook my head, my voice steady. "John. Accept reality. We're not getting back together." That cut him deeper than anything else. He looked shattered. Confused. Desperate. "Beth came onto us," he yelled suddenly. "I didn't push her away, but I didn't cheat. Why can't you let this go?" His voice was so loud it drew attention. Our parents rushed in, the room suddenly crowded and chaotic. And right on cue his parents started pleading. "Yes, John made mistakes, but the real problem is Beth. John always saw her as a sister. You and John have come so far. You love each other. Do you really want to throw it all away? Nancy. Listen, if you stay, everything will be yours. The house, the cars, the company, the savings, everything in your name. And if John ever does this again, he'll leave with nothing." My parents hesitated. They were listening. My mother pulled me aside, whispering, "Nancy, maybe you should give him one more chance." Their faces had softened. John had wormed his way back into their favor. He was winning them over. In the end, I agreed to give John one last chance. If he could go one full month without any contact with Beth, I would reconsider the divorce. Both our parents were present when I made the offer. John's face lit up and he agreed without hesitation, like it was the easiest thing in the world. Our families breathed a sigh of relief, believing the crisis had been averted. But only I knew, this was a game he was destined to lose. John blocked Beth. Despite her crying, pleading and trying everything to get back in touch, he ignored her. He really did cut her off. He unfollowed their entire friend group, wiped his social media clean and even started showing me his phone every day, eager to prove that he was keeping his word. Wilson, on the other hand, was baffled. "Nancy, you're not actually getting back with your ex, are you?" He leaned in, all curiosity. He had spent those days on our trip carefully analyzing my situation, even coming up with a solution. Use his own logic against him. Let John experience firsthand what it felt like to be on the other side. And it had worked. But now, I had seen John clearly for who he was. Our problem had never been Beth. I met Wilson's gaze. Unwavering. "I've already made up my mind. The divorce is happening. This deal is just so everyone else can finally see it for themselves." John's real test came soon enough. Beth's birthday. As the only girl in their brotherhood, her birthday was a sacred event. Every year without fail, the entire group had to show up. No exceptions. Rain or shine. I chose that day to leave this city on purpose, not out of spite, but because I didn't want John to come looking for me. I had a flight to catch. Wilson drove me to the airport. A new city awaited me. A new job. A new life. "You're really going through with this?" Wilson asked, slowing the car down as if hoping I'd reconsider. I nodded. "Wilson, I was me before I was anyone's wife." He was quiet for a moment, then exhaled, finally accepting my decision. "As your friend, I support you. And as a man, I understand why you're leaving him." The next day, John finally realized something was wrong. At Beth's birthday party, he had drunk himself into a stupor, silenced his phone, and ignored the dozens of missed calls from Wilson. It wasn't until he woke up, head pounding, that he saw the flood of notifications on his screen. His stomach twisted. A creeping dread clawed its way up his spine. Heart hammering, he immediately called back. Wilson picked up, his tone cold. "Your wife's gone. John. Hope you and Beth had a great birthday." John froze. His entire body went rigid before he shot upright in bed, fingers tightening around his phone so hard he nearly dropped it. "Where did she go?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper, but there was only one thought in his mind: I have to find her. Wilson let out a short, humorless laugh. "Somewhere you'll never find her." Then after a pause he added mockingly, "You couldn't even last a month, John. What the hell are you still hoping for?" And with that the call cut off. John sat there staring blankly at the darkened screen, his hands trembling. On my 6th day in the new city, Wilson forwarded me a message. "John has been calling everyone. Even your old company. He's desperate to find out where you went." I replied simply, "Ignore him." Wilson sent back an exasperated emoji. "He's really panicking." I chuckled to myself and shut off my phone. His panic came too late. If he had truly cared, why hadn't he cherished me when he had the chance? If he had truly understood, why did it take me leaving for him to realize what I meant to him? I had no interest in hearing his excuses. No curiosity about his regrets. Instead, I focused on my new life. I found a new job. Rented a cozy apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. Learned to cook for myself. Commuted to work alone. Went to the movies alone. Was it lonely? Maybe a little. But at least now, for the first time in a long time, I was happier than I ever had been in that suffocating marriage. John finally found my new number. He sent a message. "Nancy, can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I locked my phone without replying. Meet? For what? To listen to his regrets? To watch him look pitiful and promise once again that he'd change? There was a time when I might have softened. But now I just felt exhausted. Wilson asked me, "You really don't want to give him another chance?" "I already did," I sighed. "He just didn't treasure it." This marriage had never been just my battle. If he had truly loved me, why did he only start fighting for us after I was gone? John's messages became less frequent. Sometimes I'd get a short text, "I know I messed up." Or, "I'm working on myself." I never replied. Instead, I focused on building my own life. I joined a gym, signed up for a photography class, spent weekends picnicking with coworkers. Every day was full free mine. And one day I realized, I no longer thought about John. I no longer felt that hollow ache at night, no longer longed for something I had already let go. I had learned to move on. But John? Then one day a package arrived. Inside was a set of divorce papers. Tucked between the pages was a note in his familiar handwriting. "Nancy, I finally understand. You were never the person I thought would always wait for me. You deserve a better life. Sign it. Your freedom should be yours to decide." I sat there staring at those words. Then after a long moment I picked up a pen and signed my name. The day our divorce was finalized, I didn't cry. I felt no grief, no sense of loss. I simply went home, made myself a cup of coffee and stood on the balcony watching the city lights flicker on one by one. The night air was soft, the breeze gentle, carrying away every last trace of the past. And in that moment, I knew I had finally stepped out of the past and into my own future. As for John, whether he regretted it or not, I no longer cared.